Ladies and gentlemen, you join me here in Medewi, or perhaps Mero, or perhaps even the kingdom of Kush, an Ethiopian state with a long and powerful history that has perhaps fallen from grace, although we may be about to reverse that. This is Arakamani, our king, and his small army, thinking right now about expanding that army in order to unify Ethiopia and perhaps restore the kingdom of Kush to its former glories as the rulers of all of the kingdoms of the Nile, including, of course, Egypt. So yes, in this series I'm going to be playing Divide Et Impera for Total War Rome 2 and bringing you some commentary on the most interesting and exciting moments of the campaign as it comes along. Here is Arakamani, our faction leader, our war chief. He seems to be a pretty good candidate to get our things going. He's willful, he's a tactician, he's the war chief, as I said. The only problem with him is that he's circumspect, which slightly reduces his abilities attacking, but overall it's a mixed bag, not exactly a negative trait outright. So it looks like he could be the man to finally restore his family to glory. The family that once provided the pharaohs of the ancient Egyptian empire will perhaps do so once again under slightly different circumstances. So to get things going in this campaign, we're going to need to unify our home province, which is Ethiopia. We currently share it with the Blemis to the north and Axum to the south. So the question is, who do we go for first? We have to take one of them, but since our long-term goal is going to be to come all the way up here towards the mouth of the Nile and Alexandria, this seat of power of the Egyptian Ptolemaic Empire, we're probably going to want to go south first so that we can then turn around to the north and finish our unification with our armies in position to look out to new horizons and get new territorial gains. So I'm just looking at the diplomacy. Basically, our two neighbours don't particularly like us, they don't particularly hate us either. I guess we've been sitting here in a state of somewhat peaceful relations for a while, and you can see that while I was checking out these relations, I noticed a very interesting fact. Axum has gold, so that's going to seal the deal. We definitely want to go for Axum first as we unify the province to increase our wealth. So with that sorted out in our minds, we have to begin the long process of preparing troops. I'm going to spy out the enemy. They don't really have anything right now, but they soon will do. Of course, in Divide Et Impera, preparing troops is slightly different to regular Rome 2 because you have to take into account your population. Fortunately, Medewi is a pretty big city. Our population is sufficiently large, in the tens of thousands, that it's not going to be a problem to recruit an army of a couple of thousand. So only if we lose that army multiple times will we have to start worrying about the fact our population is in decline because of our warlike tendencies. For now, there's just going to be a bit of a gap while we prepare. We didn't have to come up with a reason to declare war on Axum, a legitimate reason at least, because they just randomly declared war on us for no apparent reason. So I guess that's going to make things easier now. We can not be the aggressor in this war and be very justified in going to take their sweet, sweet gold. So I started advancing towards them and recruiting an army near the border, and they actually seemed to want to go back on their previous statements. They started offering peace. I had to pay them for it, which didn't exactly seem to be above board, considering the fact they started this war, and now they want me to pay for them to not attack me. Very aggressive from them. I offered them satrapy, and of course they declined, and our advance continues. As I got near, I noticed they didn't really have much in the way of troops, and they weren't really defending their settlement very well. It's because they've got mercenary elephants in there, which cost the same amount as about 5 units each, so they can't have a full army with all those elephants. Anyway, I'm going to continue the advance. Unfortunately, I can't reach their settlement right now. I wanted to attack it while their main force was outside, because that would be a quite nice chance to attack them separately on the edge of the battlefield and then go on to fight the garrison. I wasn't able to do that, so instead I just moved forward to fortify a position near their settlement. It was possible I could draw them to attack my fort if they were feeling particularly aggressive. But here's what really happens. They just run away. I have no idea what caused them to do this. It was absolutely the wrong decision. It seems they don't actually want to fight us right now. However, by getting out of the way, they are going to abandon their capital to us. I'm moving my scout to see what they were doing. They seem to be recruiting more forces off to the north in the desert there, so not really sure why. I'm even checking the diplomacy here, trying to see if they're at war with someone else and perhaps moving to stop some other invasion, but apparently not. They're just at war with me. I'm their only focus, and they are ignoring me, so we're going to have to punish them for it. We move on Axum. It's got a small garrison, mostly of tribal troops who have no real hope against our large army of slightly more quality troops. So we'll cut them down and just take that settlement. We'll still have to deal with those armies because they're still out there, but now that they don't have that garrison supporting them, the fight against Axum, the decisive battle, is probably going to be a lot easier. We'll occupy the settlement, of course, because now we can start taking that sweet, sweet gold, and our income goes up quite a lot after capturing it, so that was definitely a good move. And we even captured this levy camp, which is going to start unlocking some new units for us to use, although I'm not going to take any of them right now because our army's just fine as it is. So with this done, we are going to face rebellions most likely, because public order is declining very fast due to all the unrest this war is causing. But first, Axum are going to realise their mistake and try to come and quickly take their settlement back. Unfortunately, they don't have their garrison fighting for them. In fact, we have a small version of the garrison fighting for me, and overall, as the balance bar implies, they don't really have a chance of taking the town back anymore. They should have just defended it against our assault. However, I wanted to fight this battle anyway, just to get a quick excuse to show off some of the units at our disposal. You can see the majority of our army is these painted warrior units who are very beautifully designed, although with very poor equipment. Basically, our faction's military in general is troops that have a lot of skill. They have high stats, but they tend to have poor damage and armor, meaning they're not actually very good in prolonged engagements. Now, because we are defending this town, I've set up a few traps. We've got spike traps, we've got anti-cavalry stakes here, we've got caltrops and barricades around the place, just to direct the flow of the enemy army and try and take them out. They're mainly attacking from the north, and our focus, of course, is going to be those elephants. We want to make sure the elephants go down, because if anyone's seen my previous videos in Divide Et Impera a long time ago now, you'll know that elephants are extremely powerful if used correctly, and can carry an entire army off the field with them. So before the enemy arrived, I started setting fire to these tar pits that we've got just in front of our line. Unfortunately, we have the classic Rome 2 problem, which is that setting the tar pits on fire actually kills some of the guys who are setting them on fire. They haven't quite worked out anyway, a way to set them on fire without stepping into the pits themselves. They will set a stick on fire one of these days. Now, the rest of our army is just sitting here. We've got this really blobby formation, basically because we have so many troops in such a small area to defend. But this is going to play to our advantage in this fight, because almost all troops of Medewi have javelins. So that means as the enemy advance, they're just going to be hit by like 10 units worth of skirmisher fire and lose a lot of troops. They're also going to be going through the tar pits, which will now kill a few of them. And these stones here slow the advance of units, which means we'll have more time to throw javelins at them, basically. So that's all well and good. Now, once the enemy get close, they'll start to potentially gain an advantage. However, because we are fighting other Ethiopian factions, their infantry is similarly poorly equipped to ours. So once the melee starts, it's not going to be a case of their heavy armoured infantry just cutting through us. Their elephants very kindly decided to test these stakes out to see if they could get through them, and it turns out that they can't, and many of them are also being killed by the giant caltrops just in front of them. A few javelins coming out of the town going to seal the deal. Overall, that went absolutely perfect, dealing with that very powerful and expensive unit, basically with no cost to our own side, with the exception of ammunition. But here's a more dangerous situation. The elephants charging our front line, but just as they arrive, a swarm of javelins from all our reserve starts cutting them down. The elephants are now running amok. Not really running amok, more just standing there confused, and while they're perfect targets for more and more javelins to come in, and very quickly the beasts are downed. That's going to be something like 10 units of enemy resources destroyed in those 2 units of elephants. So that was an extremely favourable exchange we got there in the battle. So the rest of the fight's going to be more of a grind. They're just sending infantry into the choke points to fight with our infantry. Some of their infantry is better than ours. They have some sword units that have proper weaponry weaponry and decent shields, which may give them an advantage over our painted warriors here. However, we've thinned them out with javelins a decent amount already, and I do have similar units myself, just a smaller number of them, so eventually I can send them in as reserves to attack the enemy now worn down by fighting our ferocious painted warriors, to hopefully just finish them off. They do still have more stuff coming in. They had that second army which is coming from a different direction, and that's pretty much ignorable, except of course for the fact it has an elephant unit in it. So I've basically deployed like 10 units to face off against them. We do not want those elephants to be doing any damage to us. Most of this group is the garrison, so lots of small 20-man units, including these tribes people who are virtually useless but are really just here to make our numbers look bigger and provide moral support. As the elephants came in, backed up by some infantry, the javelins started to rain, so once again we're going to basically make use of the fact that all of our units, while weak against elephants close up, are going to be super strong against them at range, and most of the elephants are killed at range, so that is all well and good. They actually ran amok before they arrived, but they ran amok right into our lines, so I guess that worked in the enemy's favour. However, once they arrive, they do not want to fight us. Even the guy standing on top seems unsure whether he should throw that spear at us, and after a while, someone manages to bring the elephant down. So there we go, another elephant unit taken out. The infantry won't last long just because we have so much infantry to counter them with, and even in cases where the enemy have superior infantry, we're going to be able to totally surround them. The enemy's morale won't be able to hold all that long, plus I've got cavalry marauding around the outside of the town, killing all their skirmishers and stuff, so soon we'll be able to surround them even more and cycle charge them if we want. The enemy soon realise this is going to be a problem, and they give up. So that's going to be a decisive victory. Didn't really expect anything different from this fight, just a chance to show off the units and give our men a bit of a warm-up before the more important and more difficult fights to come. So we say goodbye to Axum, and thanks for all the gold, and thanks for making it nice and easy for us as well. Really don't know what was up with that whole stage of the campaign. Seemed to be much easier than it should have been. We did actually lose a couple of garrison units. I think it's because their troop count was so low that losing one man due to some stray arrow actually destroys the entire unit because it goes below the disbanding threshold. Anyway, I had to decide what to do with some of the captives. I was considering enslaving them, of course, to work in the gold mines, but the problem is it reduces public order, and public order is already a big problem for us, so I'm going to be quite kind and just release them to go off into the desert and do whatever they want. Now, one thing that's going to help us deal with the public order problem is the fact that I just unlocked the ability to recruit dignitaries who also spread culture, which we need to do because there's a lot of desert nomadic culture around here that we need to replace with our culture, which is Egyptian. Now, while Arachomeni replenishes his forces after that bit of fighting, we can start scouting out our next target, the Blemia. I think I called them the Blemius earlier. Divide Et Impera changes the names of all the factions between English and more authentic versions, which is why we are called both Medewi in authentic version and Mero or Meroe in the old regular Rome 2 faction naming conventions. Anyway, we saw there they had a decent amount of forces, lots of spear troops, no elephants this time, and with their garrison combining with that, they're going to have quite a lot of troops, so it could be difficult to attack them. But you can see here I double took on the diplomacy screen as I realized I had missed something. Yes, they are at war with the Ptolemaic Empire to the north. That's a gigantic opponent for them, and I realized this could be my ticket to steal the rest of Ethiopia with ease. If we can wait until they get themselves virtually destroyed by the Ptolemaics and then swoop in and take their territory, that could be nice and easy. Unfortunately, after a long wait, I was ready to attack, and the Blemii still hadn't moved anywhere, and the Ptolemaics had shown no signs of showing up in the area, so I decided to make a provocative move. I'm going to make a fort in their territory. We haven't declared war on them, but this could be sufficiently provocative that they move their armies to attack me without their garrison reinforcing and just give us a chance to defeat them in the field. So that could be a little bit better than attacking the town, but their army disappeared during the end turn sequence, so it seems something similar to what happened with Axum is going on here. I don't know if Arachomeni is just particularly scary or favoured by the gods, but our enemies seem to be fleeing before us now. We get news there that Rome has conquered Magna Graecia. We shouldn't have to worry about Rome for now at the very least. So I'm going to move my scout to try and find out what's going on, and we see that indeed the Ptolemaics have arrived with perfect timing. They fought the Ptolemaic army just now and defeated the majority of them, losing not very much on their own side since they have superior armor and weapons technology to us, no doubt. So that means now is indeed the perfect time to declare war, and we happen to be standing in the perfect place in order to do it. We'll just step over and attack their settlement. Not much there, just a garrison, lots of generic tribal and levied troops. We'll auto-resolve them away. So once again, things have proved to be significantly easier than expected. Without having to fight any major battles where the enemy had any chance of winning, we've managed to take 2 settlements and unify Ethiopia. This is grand news. I'm taking a look here at the population situation. There are all sorts of things in Divide Et Impera that changes the population dynamics. Right now things are a little bit up in the air because of all the war that's going on, but hopefully Ethiopia will now have a new age of peace under our kingdom and be able to grow substantially. Of course, now our focus is going to be to the north, where we look towards Egyptus. There are 4 settlements up there, including Alexandria, the capital of the Ptolemaic Empire, which we would very much like to take as soon as possible. We're going to have to deal with lots of public order problems before then, though. The Ptolemaics actually offer us a trade agreement in the in-turn sequence, so they are going to be nice about the fact that we now suddenly border them, and perhaps aren't annoyed that we stole this potential territory from them by sneaking in and conquering that Ptolemaic settlement. I was just checking out their diplomacy on the right there, noticing they're at war with the Macedonian Empire, and thinking maybe if I need to go to war with these guys, I could do it via one of the people they're at war with to avoid their allies. They have Sparta and Athens allied into them. But overall, being at war with Sparta and Athens isn't going to be a huge deal since they're so far away, so we can just ignore that. And we're going to decline their trade deal as a precursor to the hostile diplomacy we intend to do in the future. They do very kindly finish off those enemy armies, so that's all well and good. They will go home, and we will have all the time in the world to enjoy our new little kingdom. Now this is a kind of convenient stopping point for this first part of the series, this introduction really. We've just got started and the real action is about to happen as we take on the much more powerful Ptolemaic Empire. So consider this a little bit of a pilot just to experiment with this style. Now one thing I want to do is once we reach a certain point in the campaign, I'm going to go back over it and turn it into a little bit of a narrative sequence. Tell the story of Arachimene and his conquests using footage gathered throughout making this little summative mini LP series. So hopefully that will be good. But that won't be coming until we've got some more meat through a war with the Ptolemaic Empire, which will be coming in the next part, although first I'm going to have to deal with the food problems and public order problems that are currently plaguing our newly unified Ethiopia. And of course, I may wish to upgrade my military, because facing Hellenic forces is going to be a far cry from fighting tribal forces in the desert. We shall see in the second part of this series, so I hope you'll join me for it, and thank you so much for watching this one.